So good morning, good afternoon. Good to see you all in our November SIP call, almost end of the year. It's just incredible how fast the year has flown. Good to see you all. Apologies if we scheduled the call a bit later, but we had a few events. One of them was Thinkers 50 in London and quite a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's important that we keep these calls and exchange. And so I have prepared a bit of a, I would say not workshop, but yeah, maybe brainstorming topic today, which is something that I'm very interested in. I think is um, very relevant from what I've seen in the discussions I had. So I think we're going to have a good discussion today. Let me just bring the slides up. Here, maybe. No, this one is not, sorry. Here it is. Okay, so there's basically two topics, a quick update, and then for me, the big discussion that I want. So last time, I think we shared this already, but we want some changes for next year. One idea was to have this a bit more exclusive club only for SIPs, the people who have certify. And so this is the idea that I'm meeting Robin next week, and we're going to be discussing that. So it's an option that we are considering to provide more value to all of you for being there and supporting and sharing. And when it's also bringing some ideas for us for next year, so to make it more engaging for all of you, more value. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about next year when I meet Robin. So that's what we call about the SIP exclusive club. There is this survey that I don't know if you've already completed, but it's something that we are keen in getting data. I will just put the link here on the chat if you want to click and just, if you didn't do it, I'll just put it here. So there's a link around the kind of latest trends and in strategy execution, strategy implementation. So it's not takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, and all the input is welcome. And we'll share, of course, the results here in this call with all of you. And I'm coming to the point of the discussion. A few, I think a month, maybe October, yeah, ago, I wrote an article in Harvard Business Review around hybrid. Hybrid means that you are mixing approaches and tools. Of course, my field comes more from the project transformation space. So you know that in the project world, we have very strong opinion people on waterfall and agile. And this article became one of the most read articles in HPR for a while, and there were a lot of posts on LinkedIn, and people were a bit aggressive sometimes, saying agile is not a methodology, agile is everything, and waterfall is better. And so it just, I didn't make some friends. Some people hate me for talking about this, but I don't care. So what I thought is, what is interesting is that I did a survey, this light surveys, from LinkedIn. And this was in a PMI forum, a LinkedIn group. And I wanted to ask to see of the people who reply, whether they are using already a mix of waterfall, agile, change management, lean startup. And to my surprise, there were about 2,000 votes, but 88% of the people, they already use a mix. So it's very few people who would just apply one thing, or just agile, pure agile, or they would apply waterfall. There is, I would say most of us, or maybe all of us, use a mix of methods depending on what's the task. And and I wrote this in my HVR book. I kind of came with this table where we say the level of uncertainty, the complexity, and that's where you need to use these tools. If there's high uncertainty, you use agile. If it's low, maybe don't call it project, just use continuous improvement, Lean Six Sigma, project program, Lean Startup for really new ideas, new business ideation when you don't have anything very clear yet. So what I wanted to discuss in the call today is, what's your opinion about hybrid? Is this something that you're using? How would you define it? When do you use it? Do you have like an approach where, or should we develop an approach of when to use different tools, or we should just leave it to anybody, like a cooking book, right? You just put ingredients and however you feel like. So it's just a question that I think it links to strategy implementation. Obviously, this is a bit more narrow scope on projects, but I thought we could share a bit about this topic. And then maybe you have some examples that you have used it, or you know somebody already using these type of approaches instead of just the predictive waterfall or the iterative agile. So that's what I was thinking, having a bit of a breakouts first so that everybody speaks and you have a closer discussion, and then we can have a more the plenary. So the two questions I'm looking for is, what is a good definition of hybrid that you discuss in your group? Do you have any experience, any approaches of how to use hybrid, when to, and then maybe some examples if you know, or you've used or seen or read. I think that's the three questions I like that you discuss in your groups. Maybe you say, well, a hybrid is not good. Maybe we should just stick to one. That's also possible. I don't think there's big rules here. So let me put everyone in breakouts. I'm going to join you, all of you, in different spaces, but I hope you find this topic relevant as I find. Even Harvard Business Review found this topic that they've not covered. There's very little literature I've been researching, and there's no much. There's a lot of water for this. A lot much more on, of course, on Agile, but nothing on this. So let me just put some breakout rooms here. If you don't know each other, just say hi, share a bit where you are. And I'll give you maybe 20 minutes so you have a good discussion. I'll jump around to see how you're doing. And then we have the plenary. Okay?
Excellent.
Okay, here we go. Should come the rooms now. Okay, I'm very, very curious to see what you discuss on this topic. I don't see it very clear. I know there's needs to be something on this space, but yeah, I think we're early stages. And so let's start with the first group. Let me see who was in the first group. Breakout. We had Sylvia, Stuart, Torsten. Anybody wants to come in? You can all come. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
We're talking about hybrid methods, Lauren. Let's see. We don't know really what that means, but we're trying to figure out.
Okay, thanks.
Well, if I can jump in, I was also in that group, although I joined.
Yeah, Christian, of course.
Yeah, what we were saying at the end, we got cut off because we were excited sharing. But what Sylvia was actually, what I said soon after you left the group, Antonio, said I would love for there to be a framework. I'm a framework kind of person.
Yeah.
I think that way, because I have found it useful to facilitate conversations oftentimes, and to be able to address needs, question, doubts, to facilitate the collaboration aspect of it, if there is a framework that guides us. knowing that more than anything, it just kind of sets the rails or the parameters, something obviously which is flexible enough for us to work with. And we were speaking with what Sylvia was saying at the end, and you can jump in, Sylvia, if I don't say it accurately. We kind of summarized it into saying that the use of a framework would be, it's important to take into account the level of experience, meaning someone who's more junior, who just started working, would really need to have those guidelines, someone who just recently, finished their certification, et cetera, will be very useful for them. But I think also the context in which you are using or implementing, or managing a project or the implementation of something also can determine that, because I think what you were saying, Sylvia, is if you're working with very, corporate, very structured organization or project, is very different than if you're working with or working in the startup environment. I think that's what you were trying to say at the end, Sylvia, right? Yeah. And I find that to be true. Just yesterday, I went to a networking event and I spoke to a potential new client who is CTO in a startup. And he is someone who has, this is, I think, his third startup. I think he sold the two first ones kind of successfully. He told me that he gets bored after a while, and so he needs to jump onto another one. And he is someone for whom a highly structured, frameworked process would probably be too restricting for him and his way of thinking and the way that he likes to move on to next things and the way that he works. But then he also recognized through experience that his own need for improvisation and need is what has gotten him in trouble with certain corporate clients. That's really, in fact, what he was saying to me yesterday. So that will be an interesting case study.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Anything more to add there? Okay. Let me go to group number 2. Who was there? I think we had Chris, yes. Olgu, Nigel, San. What did you talk? What is hybrid for your group? Is there anything like Christian? Is there a framework?
Anybody want to jump in? I think we didn't talk about a framework as such, but I think I think everybody recognized that there is a time when one approach is valid and a time when another approach is valid. And I think it's pretty much accepted that probably most projects may need bits of both. And from my perspective, not from others, the whole notion of agile waterfall is a false concept. And that, I was doing projects long before these two names came out, and we were using both approaches where needed, where appropriate, before that, and we didn't bother to call it anything other than project management, which is what it is. So, but I think the idea of a framework is good in the sense that we want to set a context. So what is the context for your project? Then every project has a somewhat unique context, right? And then you fit your approach. So what approach, technique, relationships, how am I going to manage this project is relevant to that context. So it's driven by the external context and demands from there, and by the internal context. What's the nature of this project, and how are we going to do it? And I think it's useful maybe to have that kind of a framework that doesn't contain the word waterfall or agile anywhere in it, or hybrid. And it just says, here's a context for managing projects. And you use whatever approach technique fits appropriately in this context. And I think that would be the most useful approach.
So like a chat, a bot that will tell you which approach to use, or?
Yeah, guide you. So, you know, and I think something, you know, like perhaps a little bit more elaborate than what you had in your book, Antonio.
Yeah.
But you know, there are, so I think within, I mean, part of what I'm in that sort of Project Canvas approach, right, is that you've got those 14 building blocks. And so if you have a context that around each of those, you've got some layers of complexity that you can apply. And you can start looking at the relationships between those in order to guide you on what would be a good starting approach for this project. And I think there's a lot of scope in there for that kind of a context and a guideline.
Adding to that, so with the context as well as the available resources for that project, what are the resources that we are going to look at that? So it depends, it has a dependency with the framework that we are going to use.
Well, the framework would say, what kind of project is this? What environment is it running in? What kind of knowledge do not just my resources, but all my stakeholders have? Because it's not about just your project team, it's about people who've got to work with them, those stakeholders. So when you have dug out some of that, you now have the context of your project, and that context comes together in different ways. Probably some of them are conflicting, you have to resolve that. And it then suggests the type of approach that you would use for maybe each part of the project, or for all of it if it's consistent. You know, but there is, and I think something that coming out in our group is that there seems to be some idea that there's, you do different parts of project management differently depending whether it's agile or waterfall, but that is simply not true, or your project will fail. So risk management is risk management. If you do it at a different stage in your project, that's one thing, but risk management is risk management. If you're going to engage with stakeholders, which you have to do in any project, whatever you want, if you want it to succeed, you need to engage with stakeholders from the beginning to the end. Which stakeholders, when, in what way, that depends on who they are, where you are in the project, how it's going, all of those things. So, and it's not any different really in terms of who does it and how you do it. Well, someone has got to go talk to someone else and do it effectively, and that's it. And we don't need to put it any further than that, really.
Okay, thank you,
And
Chris.
can I add something?
Of course,
sorry.
please, Olgo, of course.
And I'm a little bit confused that maybe there is no strict waterfall methodology or agile methodology anymore. In the past, there might have been one size fits all approach, but currently it's different. I mean, due to the complexity of the business environment anymore, in different industries, companies adapt some sort of a hybrid style. I mean, in waterfall methodology, there are certain agile dimensions acquired. And in the agile methodology, there are some dimensions of waterfall methodology. I think it's already hybrid. And companies tailor these approaches regarding their unique needs. So I think it's not possible to identify pure waterfall methodology anymore, because it's not that pure anymore. It already contains the agile dimensions. So that's my point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good observation. Yeah. I go to group number 3. You had also a great group here, Joe, Leslie, Martin, Wayne. Anything different? Anything that you want to highlight?
I could say too many things. So Martin, maybe you could condense it. Give it a shot. Come on, go for
For sure, I can start, but I touched a little bit a different view. So my sense of it was that hybrid means best of both worlds, independent if it is here about project management, project implementation. For me or for us also, the understanding was that take the best of both, but start from the top down with a waterfall project, and within you have agile methodologies. And Wayne's point was, which we all agreed on, it only works and doesn't fall in part if you have a wraparound with a quality assurance. And at the end, when Antonio joined, it was, and that was now linking to the other group, is really there is no framework yet, and we should have a framework. And I think we, or at least I, tend to fully agree. Also, being a framework person, or it helps to have the guidelines, the boundaries, in order to manage successfully projects with the different flavors. So agile, waterfall, and all other types. I mean, it's not only between agile and waterfall, there are different methods in between as well. Yeah, maybe my 5 cents on it. Wayne, you want to add something?
Well, I'm just going to add that in our experience, having worked primarily in the software world, the technology space, the success or failure of any project implementation is guided by an SDLC, a software development lifecycle, the ability to harness all of the various attributes and be able to manage them in a holistic manner. And so software development as a life cycle is a structured approach. Companies like HP invented OpenView, which is a software that allows you to manage those things. And of course, the Atlassians of the world and the Jiras of the world have created new solutions. But that being said, you need to have some form of a overarching governance as the framework model, but then it has to be able to work in unison with agile, or what we would call, of course, hybrid. But the agile serves a purpose, and we like to think of it as an overarching center of excellence that creates the unity and the uniformity. But then you have hybrid groups, which are hubs, centers of excellence specifically related to a function that they would deliver. The key is the ability to make that flywheel all concentric, where everybody is aware, and that comes down to having quality assurance, but also having communication. So contextually, everybody's on the same page.
Okay. What's the name of the software? Can you put it in the chat?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll track that down. I have no idea what their name is now. They've gone through evolution, but sure.
Oh.
Yeah, but software. If you Google software development lifecycle, it's pretty standard
Okay.
methodology.
Probably with AI today, something with AI.
Yeah.
Every software has AI. Okay, well, I don't have an answer. When I know where I know, I tell you. I don't know if Robin will have some opinion on this. This is more in my space, the projects, and I'm doing research. I'm potentially write something more, because I realize this is the future, and there's a gap, and it's not very clear. But we need a framework. We need principles. We don't need anything. People are working hybrid. It's clear. I think there's pros on both sides on the project program approach. I don't think you can skip that. I don't think companies will say we'll transform and we do whatever it happens in 3 years, but we don't have timelines. We don't have a budget. So I think there's quite some merit on that kind of thinking, planning, executing, but then you need to mix. And to me, my point, maybe it's not only agile, Scrum, waterfall, but I think the way I see it is we will be interacting items like product development too, and then we'll talk about change management too. So we're building a bit of all these different tools, methods that were all spread apart and even hating each other and killing each other because I'm agile, you know, and change management and product management and project management. And I think maybe this converge into something. And I just, again, don't know to the point of Christian people, and we need to have frameworks. I think you cannot make without, but I just don't know how that framework will look. Don't know. Any final comments?
Yeah, can I add something there, Antonio?
Sure.
I think AI will play a humongous role
Yeah.
as to
Yeah.
what it looks like. I'm speaking to colleagues and friends who are in different fields, and they are seeing how AI is playing a humongous role in the way that they're able to deliver their work. Some are seeing it as a threat to their ability to. Let me just give you a very simple example. Someone who's in the world of nutrition and wellness, where she's seeing that anybody can go and say, hi, I need a diet for this, or I need that, or what advice would you have to give me? And her expertise is almost, taken over by technology, except for the fact that what she knows or what she specializes in is something that a computer or that a system cannot yet do, because it requires that human ability to not only assess what the AI may have to say, but also her expertise is in areas that have not yet been explored by AI. And she does a lot of work in genetics and a lot of work in the way that your body reacts to exercise and dieting and so on. And only she, with her expertise, is able to do it. But she has been told that there's already apps and AIs that do a lot of the work that she does. So I think that that'll definitely have a dramatic impact in the future.
We hope they come up with a way you know whether the AI is telling you the truth or not before you give out too many diets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's in part where her expertise is also able to quickly see that. But there are some who would venture into using it and think it is the truth. And so it would undermine that aspect of her work if they do perfect it and make it something that is reliable. But she's seeing them making inroads in that. So, and it's moving quickly, she has been told.
If I could just add an observation, in our experience, we work closely with governments, and what happened is when they were building out a new application or service, which you can imagine were thousands, they didn't have a life cycle management system in place, but when they had a system being developed, they actually had to rely on contractors or individuals who built out the particular component. And the problem was that particular individual would hold the agency hostage because they had the knowledge and the expertise. So the framework we're talking about here must include the ability to make sure that there's governance and compliance to the extent that you can assure the quality can be repeatable, but also that you can be respectful of what it's been designed to do, and that it's not something where you're held hostage because somebody designed something one way. Here's the big problem that exists when software is developed at large. People build a methodology and approach which is their own, even no matter what that is. And you're really at the onus and the skill set of that individual. So how do you ensure that that person is going to be ethical? How that that person's not going to embed something malicious and some dark code in there. But the challenge is, how do you make sure that whatever's being developed does integrate and is interrelated with the overall system so it delivers the outcome you want? So there's many risks at play, but I come back to it. And fundamentally, you have to have quality assurance as the overarching for everything you touch.
That's a standard thing in all projects, and particularly construction projects, and it comes back to contracting things the wrong way. So we need to look at things like alliancing and integrated project management, whatever it is, to address those kind of issues, and of course governance. Yes.
Okay, we're on time. Thank you. What a punctual team here. I think to be continue. I think it was a very good discussion. I think we're all seeing the same need, the same opportunity. And I like this topic. So I mean, future thinking, addressing the future. So thank you very much. I wish you a lovely weekend. And Robin will get back to you in a couple of weeks for the next call. I'll try to be there. If not, all the best. The year is over. Incredible. And hopefully next year, well, we'll continue with these things, but hopefully we can meet each other. That would be the best thing.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
All the
Definitely.
best. Have a
Good
good
luck,
weekend.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Again.